In today's episode, we sit down with Brett Nelson, the Undersheriff for Kootenai County. We're going to talk about his extensive law enforcement career and what's going on with crime and law enforcement right up here in Kootenai County, North Idaho. We're about to upgrade.
Does it make me look taller?
No, I can't help that. Sorry. I'll get you a booster for your seat, though. How about that?
Phone looks just fine.
There you go.
That's why I use my
Old
patrol
school.
car.
Hey, welcome to North Idaho Experience. We've got the Undersheriff of Kootenai County, Brett Nelson, with us today. I'm pretty excited about this conversation. You have an incredible history in law enforcement. I was just getting a taste of it, and looking forward to diving into some of that. So I guess let's start with your background. You mentioned military. What would you do there?
I had a brief stint in the United States Navy.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to attend the United States Naval Academy out of 2 years out of high school. But being the greatest accomplishment personally was also the greatest downfall. I ended up failing Calculus 3 twice and was excused from the Naval Academy, in which ended my brief stint in the U.S. Navy. But from that, I gained a lot of personal introspection, and more importantly, a lot of good friends that I still have to this day.
That's cool.
Some 30 years later. So it was beneficial from there. Upon coming home from the military, within 5 weeks, I started the Sheriff's Academy and began my law enforcement career, which has now led to be over 32 years.
Good golly. That's a run, man. And you still look pretty healthy and like you got a lot of energy. That's pretty rare. A lot of guys hit that 30-year mark and they're like, almost in a wheelchair just from the job beating the shit out of them every day.
There is no stop. There's no stop.
Eric heard me say it, being in shape is different than being a shape.
Yeah.
The reality is I have taken the toll. I actually had 3 knee surgeries and got some pressed discs in the back from good times in the past, but nonetheless still enjoying everything what I'm doing.
Still kicking.
So what agencies were you a part of in Cali?
I originally was hired by the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, spent 8 months with them before I was told I was going to be laid off in 1992. So then I went to Fontana Police Department, worked there for just under 7 years, worked patrol, gangs, and detectives. SWAT. And then from there, I lateraled in 1999 to the Santa Ana Police Department, where I spent the last 22 years of my career before retiring in 2020.
And we kind of touched on some of your experience there. So it sounds like Santa Ana is like a really slow department. Am I right?
Very much so in comparison to, I believe, combat. But other than that, there's something to be said when they send combat medics to our paramedic stations to do their triaging before they are deployed. So it is, in fact, quite busy.
Hey, you need reps. We're going to send you to Santa Ana.
Yeah, very much so.
For those that don't know, geographically, where's that roughly?
Santa Ana is located approximately 30 miles southeast of the city of Los Angeles in Orange County. So if you're familiar with, most people are, Disneyland, that's Anaheim. That's about 10 miles to our north. It's 27.2 square miles. It's just populated by approximately 1.1 million people.
Yeah, that's pretty big. That's half the size of Idaho right there.
Yeah.
Half the population.
What was your position when you left Santa Ana?
I retired as a corporal overseeing our vehicular homicide unit. Amongst other ancillary duties, I supervised our honor guard and assisted with various other things. I was fortunate enough to do a lot. Within my time there, my chief gave me a lot of leeway, even as a corporal, to oversee our field training program, all of our trainees and recruits. I had a great time, and it was very beneficial for me to see what a big city, how a big city police department works.
How's because CHP we didn't have corporals. Is that similar to a sergeant or?
I hold a supervisory role in the absence of the sergeant. So it's like an assistant team leader, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I was the senior corporal by the time I left the organization.
How many sworn in Santa Ana?
Approximately about 415 now.
That's a decent sized department. Yeah.
Decent sized. We were self-contained in the sense that we had everything there that we wanted and needed. We generally didn't have to request outside, but as you try to explain to people, when you can handle in a 12-hour graveyard shift 5 homicide scenes, it's an interesting dynamic when you try to explain to people how busy things can be in relation to where we're currently at.
That is wild.
You said 415 sworn?
Yes.
So in comparison, what's county right now?
We'll see. We have approximately 90 sworn, including myself, on patrol, and then another 90 or so in the jail.
Right. And that's wild because you're talking about 5 over a weekend or 5 homicides a night.
In a 12-hour shift.
Yeah, and you aren't getting that in a year here.
No.
Well, maybe. But yeah, right around
Maybe
that.
the peak season, right? But the reality of it is it's very fortunate. And I think that's part of the draw that all of us have come to this area to live because we still have the ability. And I'll tell you this, it's very, very fortunate. And I try to stress this upon the newest people entering our profession, how appreciative it is to be supported by the community. And we have that so much.
Right.
It's so appreciative. But in turn, we need to value that. And we can't take it for granted.
It makes an already difficult job like really worth doing when you go out and people, are coming out of the woodwork and thanking you. I only experienced it a few times in my career, and one of the times I did. So in 2016, they flew 300 chippies to Cleveland, Ohio for the Republican National Convention, and which was a really cool experience, by the way. But we didn't really do much. But they finally let us out of the basement after about day 5, and we're walking around downtown, and there were like hundreds of people coming up to us, and they were so thankful and appreciative and like kind, taking pictures with us. And we're like, what is this world? Like, that was a little taste.
Is that one of the weird things? Because obviously I've only ever been a cop in Idaho. I came to county in 2014. I was there for almost 5 years and then switched to Coeur d'Alene PD. So is that one of the weirdest things to transition to, is that you come up here and the community here truly appreciates their law enforcement? Is that?
For me, it's been extremely, I remember the first experience I had, I was in the jail and they had a barbecue for the 4th of July weekend in the parking lot. And I remember walking out there with the captain of the jail at the time. And I was like, what is this? It's a celebration from the community. And
Nobody eat anything. Hold on.
I joke about that. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, what do they want of us?
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm trying to figure out what they want of us. And he's like, they just want to celebrate law enforcement. You joke about that. I've said it for 32 years now. I've had 3 things that I've asked for every day of my career. First and foremost, to go home every night. Second of all, to learn something new. We used to joke, if it's a new place that's not spitting in your food, you're good.
Yeah.
And 3, you have fun doing this occupation. The reality of it is this profession entails a lot of the worst of society. Mm-hmm. So trying to express that in the best manner, but more importantly, like you and I talked about before, I think one of the benefits that Sheriff Norris and I have brought is a element of change. We've reinstituted, and I've really pushed for the mental health side of things for our organization, because we do have a lot of people that, whether it's people that have grown up with a limited experience and entered this profession to see some of the worst, but also we have people that are coming out of the military who experience some of the worst, that are still trying to transition to the law enforcement side of things. There's a capability there that needs to be fulfilled by people that we can't do just talking to one another. So the mental health side of it has been really a push for me internally, which in turn we reinvigorated our peer support program, and we now have a mental health provider that we have people getting services started within hours instead of days.
I'm so glad
and
to hear
weeks.
that, because I imagine, you came on in the late 80s, early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s. It was a different world back then, right? I mean, even when I came on in 07, and there was the good old boy mentality was, like, suck it up, don't even talk about it.
My first FTO was a Vietnam vet, as my father was. Second day of my career, we went to a brutal homicide, and I ended up standing there for 16 hours with the victim's blood all over me. And I just remember my FTO's like, you're good, right? You're good. And you just, again, you absorb it, right?
Right.
When I was at Santa Ana, I pushed to become part of that peer support program because of the incidents that I was involved in over the years. You could bring a perspective that many people don't. And obviously, we all know the mainstream media wants to push otherwise, but the extreme use of force, lethal force, discharging one's firearm in the course of this profession is very seldom.
Yep.
But that has a traumatic event on the person because that doesn't occur so often. But more importantly, the potential and ultimately taking a person's life is not a common occurrence. That's the difference that separates those of us who are in military or paramilitary law enforcement in the criminal element.
Yeah.
There's a sense of value to that person.
Right. And you've 4 shootings?
I've been in around 4 shootings in my It seemed to be every 7 years in regards to that.
That's pretty rare. You know what I mean? I guess, I've been at a shooting, but never involved. And that was 14 years for me, and it happened, one time. But it's like that's a rare amount. Is that pretty normal for Santa Ana?
It happens. We used to train our people that it's not if, but when and how many times.
Yeah.
The two that I specifically discharged my weapon, the reality of it is they happen 7 years apart. But the things that lead up to it, again, as you and I spoke to previously, we don't get to choose the day chooses you. So you always have to have that mental capability to jump at a moment's notice.
Yeah, man, I'm glad they have somebody up there that's had those experiences, though, because I think it's popularized right now to talk about mental health in law enforcement, and I'm so glad that stigma is going away. And you not only talk about that as an agency, you back it up. Like, as we joke about this, I get those texts sometimes. Hey, bro, pulse check. Just checking on your guys. Like, you can tell where that's coming from. That you were a street level goon, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible for your whole career, and that means a lot more. I mean, there's some credibility that comes with that, and in this career, you get some people that just escalate. Man, they just promote really, really fast. Which everybody's career is a little different. Yours is one of the coolest that I've heard of, at least here locally, because you still had something in you when you came up here. You were retired, you were good to go. But how did you start at Kootenai County?
So it's a funny story. I originally reached out to a couple other local agencies, and because I was 50 at the time, or 50 plus, and going to be a retired officer, several of them weren't interested. So I initially got hired by the sheriff's office, working in the jail. Worked in the jail for about 9 months, and then Sheriff North was elected. He came over and visited me in the jail one night, and you're the guy from Santa Ana, yes?
So can I pause you real quick? Just a deputy in the jail.
Just a deputy.
Okay.
2020, June 29th, I got hired here, spent 9 months in the jail, went through the training program like any other new recruit would be, or a new hire. At that point, the sheriff came in and asked if I was the guy from Santa Ana. Yes. He asked if I'd be interested to work patrol. I said, sure, I'd love to. Within a matter of a few weeks, I was transitioned to patrol, worked patrol for about 6 months, at which point I was approached by my newly promoted sergeant at the time, who was the association president, asking if I would be or consider being the undersheriff. I told him I didn't know if I really wanted to work that hard again. But nonetheless, I thought about it for a day or two to discuss it with my wife, who retired after 22 years at the Riverside Sheriff's Office and retired early to allow us to get our kids to come up here. Came back to him and said, yeah, sure. Throw my name in the hat. A couple days later, the sheriff's secretary reached out to me and would like you to come in and speak to you. Came in and spoke to the sheriff. I'm being told you should be my undersheriff. Sure. What's that look like? And this is what I expect of you. Okay, great. That was October of 2021. I followed my predecessor around for a couple months till January of 2022, at which point I was promoted to captain, took over all of operations, and I rode that out till May of 2022 when I was sworn in as the undersheriff.
Patrol deputy to undersheriff in like a year. But those of us that were on the street, it wasn't like there was no self-interest in that. It was like a recognized need. I think Sheriff Norris came in, and that was a bit of an unknown commodity, and there was nobody that had a better pulse of the guys, in my opinion, or the pulse of the other agencies too. The first time I met you, I was out on a traffic stop, and you just backed me up. We struck up a conversation. That was one of mine. Mine are always pretext. It's legal in Idaho, by the way, if you want to come out and do a little police work. Pretext stops, highly encouraged. Okay? So I'm always looking for stuff. But he came and backed me up on the stop, and then we started talking, and I think we ended up talking about you had an interaction with some of our officers and said, hey, here's the way I am. I'm going to be real direct. I want us to collaborate. There's no walls between our agencies. And it wasn't a super positive one, but it was reaching out to me to say, hey, I want to handle this at ground level. I want us to be cool. And right away, you recognize that part's important. Not only that, there was follow-up after, hey, how'd that go? Is there anything we can do better? Is there anything on our side? Is there anything from the sheriff's office that you guys see that could potentially hinder our working relationship? Right away, it was like, all right, this guy gets it. When I heard about it and they were talking about it, I was like, oh, I'm not surprised even a little bit.
It's an interesting dynamic up here to outside perspective. The best analogy was given to me was we're on an island up here and not surrounded by water, but geography. Mm-hmm. There's only so much law enforcement up here. So each one of us is a force multiplier. And by that, trying to establish the inner connections, communication with the organizations within the county, but more importantly, the region. Like yesterday, I was explaining, I was over speaking with the the undersheriff for Spokane County. Again, just to establish a direct line of communication, because we may send some people over there and vice versa to have that direct line. It's important because being hours away from a metropolitan area, Boise, Seattle, we have to rely upon one another up here. So for me getting up here, it was establishing the relationships and building upon it. And I've always said this, take everything we physically attain in life. It's the relationships you establish with people, and more importantly, the effect you leave with them as you move on.
Yeah. There's so many retirees up here, by the way. If shit went down, you just put the word out. Like, you'll have an army.
And you speak of that. I remember that the comedy was, I came up here and they're like, every third person you're going to stop or something is a retired law enforcement. With that, I have to say that's good and bad.
Yeah. Because
the deputies, and I'm sure the Coeur d'Alene, other officers in the community, they hear about it because those retired. Let me tell you how it should be done.
Right.
Well, I can be honest with you. Being certified in the state, Idaho statutes, they're a lot like the states we may come from, California, but they're different.
Yeah. Right.
Like we all say, the best thing about Idaho is there's not many statutes. The worst thing about Idaho is there are not many statutes, and some of those statutes, because they're still written in the 1800s, and that's very difficult to wrap your head around in these day and age.
You're 100% right. In training, sometimes it's harder with the lateral than it is with a brand new one, because brand new one's starting from scratch, and you fall back to your previous agency, and what you develop there in Idaho is just different.
It is.
Talking to a lot of guys from other states, Idaho's just run a little different. We have more teeth in our laws up here, but it's harder to get into them. It's a very constitutional, which I'm supportive of constitution or constitutional states, right? But it's a little bit more difficult, and it's an adjustment.
Well, Seth can speak to it too. I mean, the California Vehicle Code, like 3-4 inches thick.
Yeah, actually, I can tear one in half, by the way, just for the record.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Good, man. Yeah. Well, that's why I laugh. And then I came up here, and I remember driving around on training with my training officers, and I'm like, hey, so do you have a statute for this violation? No, we don't. Okay. How about a statute for this violation? No, we don't. Okay. And then you come to find out the vehicle code in Idaho is about this thing.
All right. What about license plate light? Is that
nope?
Son of a bitch. You know how many felonies I've hooked off of a fucking license plate light?
You only need
24,601, man.
Yeah. You only need one brake light. One functioning brake light is sufficient in the state of Idaho.
It's an interesting perspective, because things that we knew for so long, right?
It was so easy, right?
You talk about the littlest thing. Yeah. Simply got the biggest thing.
I could stop literally any car out there in California.
Vehicle inspection, write a $1,200 ticket curbside. You just tell people your horn work. Do you have a gas cap? Just go down.
Gloves in the glove box. Let's go.
Yeah. But that brings up, and that's the first thing I tell anybody that's coming from another agency that's looking to work up here. And you did that, even with everything that you've done historically, working gangs and all the teams and everything that you've done. You come here blank slate, humble, ready to learn the new trade. The only ones that I see struggle and have a tough time is like, oh, that's not the way we used to do it. That's not the way we used to do it. That's different, and that's dumb. It's just different.
Well, we had it the same way, overseeing at the time in Santa Ana. I was fortunate enough to have 108 trainees while I was there.
Yeah.
All the way up to now deputy chiefs. The point being, we had people come from California Highway Patrol, all other agencies. Great. Remember, you joined our fraternity.
Right.
Right. This is the way we do it. If you like the way you did it, then go back to where you came. But this is how we do it. And again, humility. Everyone that came into our organization, Santa Ana, yes or no, sir. Don't matter if you had 16 years on or 6 days. I came up here and try to instill that. And that's the one thing that you speak to. It's very fortunate because you talk a different language in the sense that you're coming to a different state. Like I told you, the new hire I had on Monday, or the laterals we bring in, you bring them in and you speak to them and go, hey, listen, first off, you're going to have to reprogram your mind. Okay, you're not a slave to the radio. I expect you to do a full day's work for a full day's pay. But that being said, slow yourself down. Take it all into consideration. Doesn't lessen your guard, but if you will, speaking language. I joke all the time. We have training officers within the sheriff's office who are California laterals that typically get assigned a California lateral that's coming in because he can debrief him a little bit, if you will.
That's a good idea.
And it is. They've paid it forward. One of the most recent ones that came from Nevada County, who you and I have spoken about recently, Matt.
Yeah.
He said that was the best thing that could have happened.
Right.
Yeah. And we've had, it's very fortunate because we've had people that have hired up here, and it's funny, and 32 years of law enforcement, too much life, how their paths have crossed before somehow, some way.
That one was wild. I don't have to air that, but man, is that cool. It still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. What do you say to people that I'm sure you hear it sometimes, don't California my Idaho, blah, blah, blah. Like I hear that a lot.
The one thing that I've expressed within the sheriff's office, again, coming in, if you will, being dropped in the admin, I inherited a department that was set in its ways. I've said it since I got here. Great people, great organization. I don't want to Californicate the place. I only want to enhance the culture that we had. And if anything, curtail us from going adrift in something that we may have seen or done down where I came from.
Right.
And that's been the biggest thing is I think, again, stressing the point that Sheriff Norris and I have brought the element of change or the opportunity, not to speak down on the previous, but no was a common occurrence, common response, whereas opposed to, okay, again, my words, justify and defend it. Justify why we want to change, go this route, and let's defend it. Whether it's budgetary items or a simple uniform change, or like we talked about, ammunition. Justify and defend why we need to go that route.
Why? Because CHP is notorious for this, right? Like there was no, it was like turning a freaking aircraft carrier impossible. No change ever. It was always no. Like, what is that even mentality? Where does that even come from? Why? Is it fear? What is it?
I think it's, if you will, a little bit of complacency. And we spoke about this about working the street. Complacency will lull you to sleep. The easy thing is to say no because you know what you know. Change for the sake of change is destabilizing, especially for an individual or an organization. But if you can justify the change that's coming and give someone a mental picture as to why it's occurring and defend it, I think it's easier for that. You know, profession, law enforcement as a whole, military, two things people don't like: change and the way things are.
Yeah.
So you have to work within that and try to explain it to people like, okay, why do we continuously do this?
Yeah.
Because that's, it's the old thing. That's what I was taught. That's how we've always done it.
Every culture, and I've seen this in agencies too, and county used to be this way. It's the way we've always done it. Cool. I'm telling you that there's new case law and there's new like proactive policing, because I was always pushing but new proactive policing culture. We can do this and this will make sense. And it's covering a gap in our service and will make us safer. Well, it's the way we've always done it.
It's shocking. My department, I came on in 2007. We were not allowed to put lights on our pistols until, I don't know, a couple years in. By the time I left in 2020, we were still not allowed to put lights on our long guns. Why?
The way we've always done it.
Too tactical. I don't, there's no logical reason. It was the dumbest thing ever. And that's just a great example.
Well, from an administrative point, I see there can be the budgetary constraint.
Sure.
But the reality of it is sometimes you got to, if you will, spend a little bit more to cut into that element of change, but for the purpose of what? Better tactics, better safety, whatever. So sometimes the perspective can be skewed because we only know what we know. We don't want change, but we're complacent. And again, whether it's your personal approach to things, sometimes you got to rattle the cage a little bit and kick up some dust and say, okay, let's take a different perspective of this and come at a different angle.
I like the way you're doing it. And you had do you still have that round in your pocket? Yeah. Might be hard to get out when you're sitting down. But that's a perfect example. For those that are watching on video, this is a G9 made right here. Post Falls? Yeah. Made right here locally. Cool round. And so someone brought this to your attention and was like, hey, we should get these. And
yeah, it was brought up a suggestion internally through our organization, said, hey, would you consider changing our ammunition? And then they also spoke to the fact that it's locally produced. So we went over there and had the opportunity with the manufacturer and the owner to have a sit-down discussion about it, and more importantly, a demonstration. And then after we evaluated, I reached out to our range staff, and they were all for it. So we began this year of switching over. Now everyone carries the G9 ammo.
Fantastic. We're all about buying local up here in Idaho. So this is getting better than that. I just met the owner recently, and I intend on having him on the podcast because I think they have a really cool product over there.
Extremely. And it's to see what they're producing with the size of their facility is pretty incredible. But more importantly, just what you said, the dynamics, the specifications of the round itself is pretty awesome.
Oh, I've shot ballistic gel with that. They came out and we used it against competitors' ammo, and G9 was legit. I mean, they've got a woodsman round that will penetrate the long way 2 sets of ballistic gel and stuff.
That's what I carry in my 10 milli.
They're cool.
They're ridiculous. The round I just showed, you can't see it on the video, I'm sure, but you can Google it. It's they call it like an external hollow point, right?
Correct.
It's very different than any round I've ever seen. But neat. Clearly it functions really well.
Pretty interesting. Looks like a drill bit almost.
Yeah.
I'm really curious
how I would love to hear God forbid, right? There's ever an officer involved shooting up here and they utilize that round, I would like to hear how it performs in a real life scenario.
Definitely.
I had the shooting I was involved in. My partner shot some dude that was wearing a very thick Carhartt jacket. And we dragged him out of the vehicle, and, you know, I'm helping the paramedic strip off his jacket, and the bullet fragments were just like falling out.
Yeah.
I literally plucked a round out of his abdomen that was just partially penetrated. I may or may not have saved that for my partner. Anyway, different story.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, it's fine. I was like shocking how that Carhartt jacket was able to stop that round. But those rounds look like they would slice right through like a thick fabric like that, or glass or whatever. I'm curious.
It's very interesting. Up at Idaho, North Idaho Guns up in Athol, there's a couple employees there who are former range members and worked with my wife. And they're like, we carry that because I was asking him if he knew of it. And he's like, definitely. I carry the woodsman off duty because I live up in Cocoala, and he's up there having to deal with possible bears and stuff because I'm not leaving, getting my wood. But talking to him, he's like, this is incredible that you guys are switching over as a department to have that. So again, change, just trying to justify and defend it.
Yeah, but it comes back to your own philosophy. You said before that one of your tenets is you learn every day. You come in, the day you're done learning, I've long said that the day I'm learning is the day I'm going to hang them up, right? And that I've just had a recent conversation with you where it's, hey, yeah, there is a gap in this, and this is a way forward, but it's not the initial no. Your first out is not, no, we're not going to do that because it's not the way we've always done it. It's listen, break it down, and see if this can make sense.
Yeah,
and that's a perspective. I mean, you have a lot of people that become comfortable, and they're like they may feel their authority is infringed upon, or they may be threatened. The reality is you'd rather inherit that and channel someone. We spoke of one of your friends that's an associate, a friend of both of yours, and a friend of mine. That young man, he's got a wealth of knowledge just in life experience. And again, having worked with him and known him, it would have been great to channel that. But nonetheless, he's excelling in his personal life, and that's great. But I think so many times, as we express, there's a 3, a 5, and a 7-letter word that gets in the way of typically men, but great organizations. It's ego, pride, and control. You can't put your ego aside or behind you, or your pride, and you can't relinquish control, which in turn leads to your demise.
Yep.
The reality of it is, again, having an outside perspective, if you will, getting dropped in to this organization at the top, or as I see it at the bottom, it's an inverted business pyramid. I have the opportunity to express. So I have an open door, because people who befriended me as a patrol deputy or a jail deputy when I was, if you will, no one, they have an open door. They can come and express their opinion anytime. And that's where typically the best type of, if you will, suggestions take root and move from there.
When's the book coming out? Because you got a wealth of it.
Yeah, man, and he hasn't changed.
Good philosophy.
Yeah, he hasn't changed, bro. Like, that's the thing from the street. It's very much approachable. I've told you this before, and it just seems like I'm just heaping praise on you all. But man, you're the least administrator that I've ever met, just because you came from that street goon mentality, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. Like, you're out there looking for bad guys and looking for felons, and keep your eye on the prize for what patrol is supposed to be, or what the agency's mission is, which is, collaborating with our partners and collaborating with our citizens, man. And it's been a breath of fresh air to see on that side for sure.
Well, we used to say down in Santa Ana, we had 2 types of cops. There was hunters and berry gatherers. Yeah. The hunters, we go out and hunt the criminal element, the bad, the men of society. But along the same lines, you have those who want to pick berries and take the reports. That's fine. We have to complement each other.
Yep.
Yeah,
but the reality is
both.
we choose which path we want. And I think it's beneficial. You talk about, again, the interagency, the force multiplier. I typically drive around from about 4 in.the.morning till early evening. And if there's someone on a traffic stop, I'm going to check out with them just because I don't have that mentality. We just keep driving by. No, never know, especially as thin as we are spread throughout these 1,316 square miles of the county. I can't stress enough, it's a force multiplier.
How do you most guys hit 30 years and they're ready to hang it up, but like, you don't even seem like you're close to ready to hang it up.
No, I see it as a purpose, and it is. We talk about it. It's a calling. Mm-hmm. I've truly enjoyed this. I grew up. My father did 30 years. My uncle did 30 years. My wife did 22. And let's be frank. If it wasn't for her support, I wouldn't be doing this still. And the family, we've all paid the price where our families have written checks that we couldn't cash years past. I remember when I took this position, my son, one of the things he asked me was, 1, you're going to sleep more. And 2, remember that we can take time off. Jokingly, up until the election, it was working about 8 8 days a week.
Oh man.
Now I'm down to about 5.5 back, but energy. I like having as we spoke of, a systematic approach to my life. It's not perfect. Okay. But the reality is getting up a certain time every morning, going to the gym, getting my day situated. Cause I tell people I can control the front end of my day. I can't control anything once I get to work, and it all goes to wayside. But, I truly enjoy coming to work. I don't see it as work. I get to come and see friends, interact with people that who've befriended me since I've been up here now 4.5 years. And the drive that I had in Santa Ana is the same, maybe channeled a little bit different perspective. But again, just trying to better, again, man of sayings, trying to do the right thing for the right reason for the right people.
Yep.
No, and it's so cool. And I've got a chance to meet your wife. She is just as bad at being retired as you are. Okay, she is equally busy. I know she runs tunnels for towers. I remember going to that event. She stays really busy too. When I asked her about you being appointed undersheriff, she's like, yeah, it's just one of those super supportive, happy. If he's happy, I'm happy. Like, you could tell that just been the lifestyle. Like, and I know I feel that in mine. So it's like, all right, babe, I'm running this kind of new thing that I'm doing, and I'm going to do this other job at the same time. And I'm going to stay in the military for next year. She's like, oh, whatever. Just, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, we've been a great team over the 23 years we've been together, because between the two of us and two professions and 2 careers within this profession, we were always making compromises between us personally, to make sure that one of us was there for the kids all the time. I laugh, just like I was telling our new hires this week, we all married. Sometimes the benefit, your wife says, it'll be great, I don't see you till Friday. But your kids are like, Dad, Mom, when are you going to be home? What time? And that's the point where Michelle and I made it a point to ensure that one of us was there 99% of the time.
Yep.
So that the consistency for the kids. So we took our lumps between us, not seeing each other, as we used to say in the military, hot racking it.
Yeah.
She's going to work and I'm coming home. Yeah. But the reality is we made it work, and it can continue on. We've endured.
Right. Well, you put such a high emphasis on guys and their family, and, making sure personal lives are good. And again, it's not just placating or speaking to it. I remember when I was a new sergeant, and I think I worked every Christmas in a row. I roll in there. It's like 6 a.m. I get a message. I get an IM, and it's the undersheriff. Hey, what's up, brother? What's going on? He'd come in. He was the watch commander for the day. You'd never say that, so I'm going to say it for you. But you'd come in, check those guys off, and you're out responding to crashes as the undersheriff to make sure those guys go home with young kids.
That's fantastic.
It's cool. It spoke volumes.
It's perspective, because it's nice to have, again, giving back. Guys can log on in the morning, and I'll give you a perspective of a California lateral. Came here and he's like, so let me get this right. I can log on in the morning. If there's nothing holding, I can have breakfast with my kids before they go to school. Yes. Okay. And I try to tell the new hires, you work within the county, which was something foreign to me. You work here. If you miss a school function or something, that's on you, because all you need to do, unless we have a major incident, check out with your sergeant. Hey, I'm going to go to this function, because you get it one chance to do it right by your family.
Yeah.
And I take that because, my father, when he came out of Vietnam, he went to work graveyard for 4 years and went to USC during the day to get his degree. And to this day, if you want to get him emotional, he'll say, I never heard your first word. I never saw your first step. So when I was entering this profession, he's like, make sure you do it right. So the point when you retire, your kids know you.
Yeah.
And I joke, when I left Santa Ana, the place didn't crumble behind me. It continues on. Mm-hmm. It's nice to be thought of, but more importantly, it's nice to be known by your family, your wife and children. Again, not perfect at it. It's a continuous effort given, but it is the point where that long-lasting relationship you establish, especially within your household.
How do you feel about, I've been talking about this lately at the Patriot Pour, which is it's a free coffee thing down at, Bob's been there a few times. I don't know if you need to pop in there sometime.
Fair enough.
It'd be fun. But I'll remind you. We had this conversation about, would you recommend your kids join the military or law enforcement in today's society? How do you feel about that?
I still think it's a calling, and let's be honest, it's a necessity of society.
Yep.
Whether you serve in one capacity or other, that's a personal choice. I would love to see one of my daughters was initially looking at forensics capacity of law enforcement. My son was considering being a pilot, maybe law enforcement too. Obviously, it's very difficult in the optics of society, right?
Yeah.
I use a term quite frequently. It's FUD. Sheriff and I use it quite frequently. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. That's what the mainstream media likes to push on a daily basis. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. In Southern California, it was if it bleeds, it leads, right?
Yep. Yeah.
The reality of it is they, as of recent years, the mentality towards law enforcement was this is corrupt group or whatever, when in reality, it's a fraction of situations, interactions within the public that go awry. 99.999% of it is all good contact. So getting back to your question, I would love to have them consider it. Would I push them towards it? No, it has to be a personal choice. Yeah. And I think that's what drew the three of us into this profession, whether coming out of the military or having personal experience of growing up around it. I'll be honest with you, I had no desire to be in law enforcement. I was hoping to be a career military. That didn't work out. I came home and had to get my head right to start a profession. And I always remember my father saying, you can get a job or you can start a profession. And you look at it that way. This profession has evolved so much. When I first started, we didn't have handheld radios. You didn't have computers in the car. Now everything's computer based, and you pretty much have to be computer literate to do your job. It is very interesting dynamic when the computers go down and people are somewhat adrift and trying to get their activities done.
How much did you love that, though? How much do you love it when that goes down and you're stuck there? You're like, all right.
It is, you go back to a Thomas guide, right?
Oh, dude, myself. That's how I started.
My wife and I laugh about that all the time, about you try to explain to kids because now everything's Google, right? You get directions where it's just, okay, you go to page 17, A4, and then it carries over to page 18, whatever, and trying to, while you're responding to a call. And I can only imagine up here in this county with the fire service roads and everything.
Oh, boy.
It would be quite difficult. But nonetheless, getting back, the point being is it has to be a personal choice. I would love for them to follow in the footsteps of my wife and I and my father and my uncle and following us. But it has to be a personal choice. You can always tell them the good and bad. But let's be honest, this profession is no different than your highs and lows daily. Yeah. It's what you make of it.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of pushback from the community? Because I know the sheriff's from Southern California, you're from California. Like, do you hear much of that, and how do you handle that?
Honestly, I heard a little bit initially. The more I'd like to think that people speak or interact with me, you find out that, again, like I explained, I'm not here to Californicate this place by any means. I just want to bring the best of what I've seen and experienced and avoid the other side of things. And you just try to talk to people that it's perspective. There has to be a change, because I joke, over these beautiful hills out here, there's a world of chaos that ensues. And I would like to keep the buffer strong. And I think that is a great deterrent here in Idaho, is the people actually take an active role.
Yeah.
And that is a great, and not that they did in Santa Ana or in Southern California too, is that there was a silent majority. Here, it's a very vocal majority. And I think if we continue to champion that and interact with the public to ensure that, one, we're not infringing upon their rights, their constitutional rights, but trying to express the needs and wants and, if you will, repercussions of enforcing the laws. I've said this for years. I don't make the laws. I just get paid to enforce them. That originates in Boise. If you need to change law or you want to, contact the legislatures. Again, we're sort of in that proverbial rock and a hard place. The law says black and white. We're allowed the spirit of the law at times, but sometimes we are just figuratively handcuffed by having to carry it out. So I don't hear a lot anymore about the California thing. It's more like, what do you plan to do going forward?
Yeah.
And that's very rewarding for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just law enforcement either. I mean, don't Californicate my Idaho. We hear that a lot. I try to remind guys on the street, most of the people that are moved here for a reason.
Yeah.
They were trying to get away from something down there or those particular policies. If they're new to town, you're also fighting apathy towards law enforcement, because I think the community down there was less supportive, right? So remind them of how we police here. There's no crime check. You're not calling in and getting put through a system where you can't talk to a person or not speak to a deputy. Remind them the way we police, why we want them to get home safe, especially if it's a soccer mom minivan traffic stop. Right? I know you're going to go all trooper on me, right? After you issue your 6 citations for not having seatbelts on. No, but truly, tell them why it's violation, why you want them to get home safe, the way we police, put them at ease, make them smile, and send them on about their business. Our community's still small enough, you're going to run into them again, right? It's just a different way of policing.
And you speak to that because there's a customer service value to this profession. we interact with people. I've always said this, they're going to remember us long before we remember them, just because of the amount of people we come in. You speak to that. I go to the gym every morning. Guy come over and said, "Hey, sir, how you doing? You're Deputy Nelson, correct?" Yep. I remember work in dealing with you in the jail. And I just want to say thanks for the way you treated me. Again, it could go far, far worse. We all know. But again, trying to explain to people, especially coming into this new profession, that there is a customer service element, that maybe it was dampened a little bit down in previous areas because of just the amount of calls and everything
volume,
else.
size,
volume,
population,
everything, and the element you're dealing with on a regular basis. Here, again, great people up here. They want to be supportive. It's a matter of channeling their efforts to assist us, and that's very beneficial.
Yeah, the deputies I've run into up here on the job have been stellar. Shout out to Deputy Cox. He pulled me over one time. Class act. Class act.
Well, and man, I always bring that up, and I use this as an example. It seems 'tis the season, since tomorrow is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting around your table with your family and the hot topic becomes law enforcement, because there for 3 or 4 years, that's all anybody was talking about, right? Was interactions with law enforcement and how they're excessive force, violation of rights, everything else. Average law-abiding citizen has contact with law enforcement every 6 years approximately. How do you think they are going to weigh their opinion or project their opinion when they're sharing it with somebody else? It's going to be their own contact. For you, it's a 6-minute interaction on a traffic stop, or they're calling in because their neighbor's dog won't start barking. That's their once every 6-year contact. And they're not only going to make their opinion of you, your agency, but law enforcement as a whole. It costs you nothing to have a decent interaction with them. And I mean that even if you just arrested him on a felony in the back of the car. I've had the same interactions. I pride myself on that. Hey, once you're in the back of the car in cuffs, man, it's over, right? I don't need to belittle, berate, judge, anything like that.
Right.
Our community's still small enough to where that still comes full circle.
And again, it goes back to that personal element, right? Somewhere, some point in our lives, we've all been there potentially. And we have to remember that, it's like inmates in our jail at this point. There's people there that just made a poor choice or in a poor situation, or, then there are the ones that are just, that's what they do, crimes, criminal element. But the mere fact that most people are just making a poor choice in their life, and they were at the wrong place, if you will, at the wrong time, and were arrested for it. The personal interaction far outweighs the services rendered, if you will, because much like a business world, it's word of mouth. And, you speak to that one person sitting at the table. I had a great interaction with Deputy so-and-so. You know what? That's great to hear. And then it bleeds. And then next thing you know, they have an interaction and it continues and onward, it snowballs, if you will. And again, it goes back to, we have a lot of great people at the organization. I can speak to Coeur d'Alene Police Department, Post Falls Police Department, Sheriff's Office, a lot of great law enforcement professionals in this area. All we need to do, my job, is to continue to ensure that they get the proper training and the backing, both administratively within the community too, to do their jobs effectively and efficiently, and most importantly, safely, so they can all go home at night.
All right. You mentioned a lot of agencies. We get a lot of people watching that are either looking into law enforcement or they're potentially laterals from other agencies. Why should they come to county?
I will tell you, the Sheriff's Office has a lot of opportunities internally, got a lot of different various specialized details. I think the climate, more importantly, the culture being of a family essence is very important to a lot of people this day and age, because commitment starts in the home to one another, with the family, and being an extended family. You're going to be working 10, 12-hour shifts. Whether you want it or not, they're going to be a family.
Yep.
I've always said this, and whether it's my previous experience in Southern California or here, city police officers typically make more money, but the sheriff's office or the sheriff's offices have various assignments within the organization that a lot of other entities can't do. I look forward to young men and women who are at 18 who can be hired and start working in our jail if they choose to, and get in the pipeline, if you will. I'm not one to tell people that you shouldn't go if you have the inclination to leave an organization, only make it a better one. But I think overall, the sheriff's office for a young man or woman coming out of high school or early age at 18 or even 21 to work patrol, there's a lot to benefit. And most importantly, you get to work the entirety of this county, the beauty of this county. And I will tell you, for me, having worked at inner city for majority of my career, it's great to have the opportunity to drive out, and you're going to go drive a fire road or drive to Bayview or Cataldo or Worley, wherever you want to do, just to take in everything.
Yeah, definitely beautiful.
No, I often say I am a very proud alumni of Kootenai County. They're the ones that gave me the opportunity coming out of the Navy, and my background was thick. Boy, like there was some crust on there. I said if anybody was taking a gamble, it was
two
Kootenai.
C's, yeah,
it was Kootenai County. Really, really good training program there. I still say it was funny. They would shut the computer, give you the map, and say, "All right, let's go." And Athol, Spirit Lake, Twin Lakes, Rathdrum, Post Falls, Worley. I mean, it's such a huge area. It's wild. Running code from Athol to Worley is pretty fun.
That'd be a ride.
Oh, yeah. 45 minutes running code. It's a pretty good time.
There's a lot, there's perspective there, and trying to get down to Harrison during the winter on a priority call is an interesting dynamic. That sent me one. I was pretty included because you're so used to coming from Southern California. You request another unit, you hear a siren coming here. It could be quite a while till you hear that siren.
Yeah.
What do you think is there's several, and especially street guy going to administration. What do you think is the biggest, in your mind, what's the biggest issue facing our area right now? Because we have a pretty big population expansion. What do you think is the biggest issue facing us as law enforcement?
Twofold. One is trying to catch up with the expansion. The infrastructure is not where it needs to be, and that's because of years past of decisions made. Most importantly for law enforcement itself is for us community-wise, I refer to the 3 Ds. That's our criminal: drugs, DUIs, and domestics. We really don't have the criminal element, and that's a collective effort with all the agencies here. The problem we have is hiring. And part of it is, we are somewhat for affordable and available housing. We're sort of limited there.
Yep.
We don't have the metropolis area, like in the Boise area, where you can pull from a vast amount of people. The hiring component with the wages in comparison to the cost of living and housing up here is quite difficult. And I think that's a hard issue that's one to discuss, but more importantly to get over. We're making great strides with our commissioners and local agencies in regards to, if you will, the competitiveness, which has to be there, because it's just like in a professional organization, someone, if they can make more money doing the same thing, they're going to look at that. So 100%. You have to have different options to work within your organization and your budget to try to keep them there so they don't have that open eye. Because let's be honest, in the business model of things, if you think about it, high school is 4 years, college is usually 4 years, military is 4 years. At that 4-year mark, people start looking. They've become, if you will, comfortable, and they're like, what can I do? What can I look out? So for us as administrators with the respective agencies, we have to stay competitive one way or another. Continuously getting better technology, the use of it, better equipment, training, exactly, because the human side of things will come in, and who can pay me more? What can I do for less? So getting back to your point, I think it's a collaborative effort. Collaborative in the sense of our elected officials, our administrators, but more importantly, it gets back to the individual deputy officer promoting. What's going to draw someone from their line of work right now to come work for the sheriff's office or a police department? Typically, it's that one-to-one, like, tell me why is it so good over there?
Yeah.
We are all ambassadors, not only of my organization, the sheriff's office, but law enforcement as a whole. We need to be collaborative. For your personal business, you're your own ambassador.
Yeah.
If you're not out there selling it as it should be, then you can't expect others to do the same. So again, if you will, flying the flag for this profession, flying the flag for your individual organizations. I quite frequently tell people all the time, you come to the sheriff's office, let's be honest, you can make more money going to a police department here, but I try to sell them on the culture and the other opportunities they have within the organization.
Take home cars. And equipment wise, you guys beat us out. I mean, there's no doubt. And truly, when it comes to wages and benefits, man, there's for whatever reason, your guys' group between you and the sheriff, and whether it's the foundation or whatever that is, you guys have had more success with the commissioners. I mean, we're right there close now. It used to be county was always like, I don't know, maybe 10% behind.
I applaud the efforts that the sheriff and I have had with obviously the success for our benefit of our people, but that goes with the relationships we have with the commissioners. And it's been, it's not always easy. But again, it's a matter of running a business, and that's the approach that we need to have and continue to stay so, because we all want to be favorable in the eyes of those potential hirees. So how we can do that. And again, going back and trying to stress internally that we're all ambassadors of our respective organizations and this profession.
Yeah, we had Bruce Matari on here. Great. And he broke it down. He's a sharp guy. He broke it down how much money was being lost by deputies, training them up and then leaving for another department. That's total common sense. It makes so much sense when you put it that way of like, okay, let's put a little more money up front so they don't leave. So hopefully that trend continues.
Well, part of that is that at the time when we were trying to bring, if you will, our deputies up to whole, at the time a top step deputy could only qualify for a mortgage around $360,000.
That's not going to cut it up
frank,
here.
If you can find a $360,000 mortgage around here, you probably have a street fight over that location, jokingly. Again, trying to present that in a factual manner, numbers, facts. It's beneficial because you can show people where we're at and where we need to be in that competitive range. Again, so that we don't, as the sheriff and I have both pushed, we're not here expecting to be paid the best. We just want to stay competitive so we can continue to have that influx of new people coming in.
Yeah, right. But then you include this culture of, man, we're bringing you here, especially from another agency. You've got this wealth of knowledge from this other place. We want to tap into that, and we're not going to tell you no right away. Yeah. If you can come to us with this skill set, like I've talked a lot about, social media or some of the tech stuff. I just don't have it. I'm glad some of our guys are scratched, but we're missing a lot there. That's where the whole dope game is. But if somebody comes in with this dark web knowledge or this knowledge of, man, that stuff's really, really valuable. And your guys' culture, man, you want to listen. Right. Like I said, we brought this idea to you guys, and you're like, yeah, that completely makes sense. Let's do that. It's just a cool culture, and that in a lot of ways is more valuable than making $1.50 extra an hour.
Yeah. And it is, it's the networking, if you will, right? I talk about it up here, and word of mouth through business, word of mouth through law enforcement, the relationship you establish. We all know we can get more done by making a simple phone call than it is to trying to send an email and wait for it to shake down. It's having the ability to open up your phone and make a phone call right then and there and get a definitive answer, and you can move on it. And that's where, again, Bob and I have tried to change the culture by pushing down decision-making to the lowest level. Yeah. There was I wouldn't say there was a fear to fail, but no one wanted to be that ultimate decide factor. Whereas now it's make a decision, let's move with it.
Yeah. And you empower them and then you back them, right?
Right. Again, we used to joke, no harm, no foul. Anybody hurt? Okay, we can change that. But big pictures, okay, we made this decision. We can learn from it. We can continue on down the road. There is no bad decision. Okay, it's inactive. You don't make a decision, indecisiveness, and that's where you get us in trouble.
Yeah, and you mentioned this before the podcast. Simple things like beards, like you guys just pushed that through recently, or
that's been in the last 2 years. That was one of the things that was brought forward from the rank and file, asking if we would consider it, and obviously from the organizations we came from, that was a no-go. I mean, obviously, another thing was brought up: tattoos. Yeah, My agency to this date, Santa Ana PD, if you're sleeved, you wear a long sleeve wool uniform every day.
Same with CHP, yeah.
The reality here is let's look at society. That's a hard thing. And the way I look at it, it's a free 99 item. Okay, you keep it manicured and properly groomed. The tattoos, unless and you got hired with them, so unless they're descriptive and racial or something of that nature, it's part of society. And that helps us to further recruit and attain possible new recruits or new hires in the organization. So little things like that.
It goes a long way. I worked backgrounds towards the end of my career for a little bit, and I can't tell you how many people came in and they'd come to the initial meeting to hear about it, and we'd tell them, yeah, sorry, no facial hair other than a mustache, because those are cool. They're coming back, I guess. So, and then tattoos have to be covered, and they're like, Like that's a deciding factor for some people.
Right. It is. And, I had to tap into the resource of my wife. She did backgrounds for several years down in her previous agency, and picking her brain in regards to how they went about it and what they did, and to establish a policy where, one, it's accepted, but two, it's much like training. The training that I received back in 1992 entering this profession, we don't need to relinquish what we want or expect of our training. It's just we have to deliver it in a different manner because of knowing your clientele, knowing your audience this day and age.
Yes. That was a great sales pitch for the Sheriff's Department, by the way. So there you go. Yeah. Come work for the Sheriff's Department. We will help you find a home when you move up here. It's like a win-win.
I'm super proud of the fact that there's been several that have listened to this or followed your content and ended up coming over here and working in one of the agencies. We take a lot of pride in that. That's why it's so great. I've been wanting to get Brett on here for a while anyways. And I know I had to wait till after the election. I think you're the first person I text to be like, buddy, You can take a break, bro. Take a weekend off, man.
Deep
Chill.
breath.
So, no, it's really good to see that. I absolutely, again, I'm a proud alumni of Kootenai County. It's cool to see where it's gone, and I'm so glad they took a street guy. I just don't think you can replicate credibility with the guys, and they see you out there doing that. It just resonates because it wasn't a career jumper. And again, no knock on that. Everybody's got a different career, but you've been a ground hammer for so long. When guys look at that, or you're assessing their use of force, bro, you've been there. Like that's huge. And that, I think that'll attract a lot of people who want to work for that agency.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity from both of you. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, same here.
Obviously, the reality of it is it's a collaborative effort. And I think we all jokingly, being political refugees to this from our previous state, bringing the right things up here and trying to promote it, whether it's through your business, this type of event, or the sheriff's office, police departments. It's a collaborative effort to ensure that we still have the values that we all want. They're all the values that we all brought us here, and continue that on, whether it's through law enforcement, business, whatever else. It's a collaborative effort.
Right. It is. We joke about it all the time, but it's the throwback, man. I mean, Idaho's a 20-year throwback. When I'm talking to you or we're asking questions, it's funny. You've always got somebody. And I feel like Dave's the same way, especially when it's like, hey, I got a guy, hold up real quick. And you'll call right there. Hey, I'm going to put you on speaker. I'm with my buddy Eric. Check this out. And then we'll break it down right there. And then there's follow through. And that's how you get stuff done. It's cool. It's not always that way everywhere else. There's not that interpersonal relationship. So
I love that. That's what makes North Idaho really special, I think, in my opinion, is that.
Right.
There's so much collaboration up here.
I got one more. I know we're closing it up, but I got one more. I am just curious because I asked my chief about this. My chief's from Mesa. And I say, what is that thing that you're looking for where it triggers, all right, our community's starting to change, from where you came from? What's that thing that you start to see, get into the community where you're like, oh man, that's starting to show a shift in the wrong direction?
For me, it'd be two approaches. One, the lack of involvement by the community. We still jokingly, in a most serious manner, we have a lot of people that care, which is beneficial.
Right.
And two, the quality of life issues. You start seeing little things. Let's speak to graffiti, things of that nature.
Right.
If we don't address that, they become second nature, and then people don't blend in. The reality is we still need people to take an active role in our community, whether it's within the sheriff's office, the police departments, politically, whatever it is. Stay true, but more importantly, and get to know people. Granted, we are spread out here a little bit more, but if you take the time to speak to someone, get to know where they're coming from. And more importantly, those little things, the quality of life issues, if we don't address them right at the onset, they're going to open the door. And I think that's what we need to just focus on while continuously using proactive policing, getting out of the cars, getting out to the businesses, talking to people. Okay. I can tell you, again, as we've evolved, first started, you just go to the call, handle the business, and move on.
Yeah.
Now it's trying to solve that problem right there at the onset so you don't have to come back again.
Right.
The other part of it is I think as a whole, as a community, we just need to stay focused and stay active, not only on our personal beliefs, but that as a whole, so that we don't change what we all love about North Idaho.
I communicate that all the time. If somebody's calling me in from a neighborhood, and it's funny how most of them, you look at their call sheet and they haven't called in 3 years. They're saying, hey, there's a van that comes here every once in a while. It just seems kind of weird. It's probably nothing, and I don't mean to waste your time. First thing you should say is, you're not wasting my time at all. Reinforce what it is they see. Nobody just because we go to a 10-week-long law enforcement academy, or 12 weeks now, I'm not sure, but
16.
Yeah, 16. There you go. But encourage them to say, just because we go to that doesn't mean we see everything better than you do. Nobody has the baseline established for what the law-abiding public should look like in your neighborhood like you. I encourage you that if you see something different, you're a force multiplier. Please call us and tell us what's up. Are you willing to send me something live when that's there? And then they see deputies or PD pulling up and having a contact with that person, immediate, relentless follow-up. Man, that's huge. You make a friend, and right away, what are they saying at the Thanksgiving table? Oh, that sucks that you just came up from San Francisco and that's your experience there. It ain't that way here. Here's what happened.
And I tell people all the time, if it seems odd to you, it's most often going to seem odd to us.
Right.
So you just spoke on it. Sorry, that's my job.
Yeah.
You're not wasting my time. Please give us a call.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the comedy sets in and you're sort of like, why did you call?
Yeah.
But in all honesty, that's what we need people continuously do, because we have an element, just as I was speaking yesterday over at Spokane County Sheriff's Office, criminal element doesn't know the boundaries or borders between cities, counties, states.
Yeah.
They don't. We do, and we have to be governed by that. But nonetheless, we have to stay collaboratively working together as a force multiplier. I can't stress that enough, to continuously look for that element within our community. And I think we're doing very well across the board.
Yep.
But like I tell everybody else, it's like within our organization, we may have sicknesses, but we're definitely not ill. But that doesn't mean we can't get better, or we should continuously strive to be better. And that's what we try to do. Like you said, training, equipment, technology, whatever it is, to ensure that we continue to protect and maintain the quality of life that we want up here.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, Brett Nelson, Undersheriff of Kootenai County. Thank you, sir. Pleasure to meet you. I look
you.
forward to pulse checks in the future.
Yeah, you definitely will.
I'm on the
Thanks so
list.
much. You're on the list.
Awesome.
Let's do it again sometime. Any big events come up or anything you guys want to talk about? Let's get in here and put it out to the community.
I will gladly do so. That'd be beneficial for all of us.
And we will do our best to keep recruiting fine men and women to come up here and work in law enforcement, because it's just good for the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
All right.
Yep.
See ya.